Today we're joined by Benny Benack III, a rare talent who's making waves as both a trumpeter and vocalist. With a fiery command on postbop trumpet with a crooner's charm, he's been recognized as Rising Star Male Vocalist in the 2025 Downbeat Readers Poll, while also ranking among the top jazz trumpeters. Benny's performed worldwide, gone viral with Postmodern Jukebox and the Eight Big Big Band. He's also shared the stage with people like Christian McBride, Emmet Cohen, and Bria Skonberg. Whether leading a band, hosting jam sessions at Smalls, or lighting up the stage at Birdland, he's redefining jazz performance for a new generation, and looking forward to speaking to him. So, Benny, good to see you.
Happy to be here, man. Thanks for setting some time aside for us to chat.
Oh, absolutely. Well, first of all, congratulations on the Rising Star Male Vocalist of 2025. You must be on cloud nine. Like when you get an accolade like that, it gives you a little boost of confidence, I'm sure, right?
Yeah, Downbeat is sort of the Bible for jazz musicians, and I've grown up reading Downbeat and going right to the back pages and seeing who's doing the blindfold test, that edition, and reading album reviews, and anytime you get any notoriety from the media or the audiences, it means a lot. And it just sort of is, to me, more than anything, it's just a sign that the hard work and the hustling and the grinding, it's going towards something. So if you look at those lists, whether it's even the Rising Star or just the regular lists, there's so many inspiring artists out there, and especially for vocalists, there's another 200 people that could fit on that list. So even just to have my name up there anyway, it means a lot. But it was definitely fun this past year because I had been on the Rising Star Male Vocalist list for like the last 2 or 3 years, and I was always like number two. So I was just like, trying to break through that ceiling. And so for me, it was like, all right, okay, I finally got past, my plateau. But it's really, it's just really an honor.
Well, you also use the word you're still hustling and grinding. Those are your words. So I'm sure that's definitely changed for you versus when you're starting out trying to play in New York than what it is now, because your career has definitely, climbed the jazz ladder, so to speak, and you're going up it and in a great place right now. So at this point, what's hustling and grinding? What do you see it as?
Well, I what I love about New York City is that it will humble the greatest, biggest superstars in the world will come to New York City and just absolutely remind you, that we are all on this journey and nobody has arrived. I've come back from tours worldwide. Like you mentioned, Postmodern Jukebox. I'm on a tour with them 2018, playing one-nighters in Europe. These concerts we played in Turkey for 6,000 people in Volkswagen Arena, and you think you're a rock star. And you come back to New York, and the first gig I have, I'm playing in the corner of a restaurant, and the owner's yelling at me because the trumpet's too loud and the people are trying to eat their spaghetti. So New York it's a special place because you grow up in the jazz scene here, and then people around the world, they know that brand and that New York sound, and they covet that. So people will fly me from South Korea to Argentina to Denmark, and I'm flying all around the world, and people are asking me, "Wow, what's it like in New York City? What's Smalls Jazz Club like? What's New York like?" And then you get to New York, and people in New York, they're used to it. They get this kind of talent in people every night. So a New York crowd isn't going to be impressed just because you're from New York. You really have to work for it and get the audience on your side. So when I say hustling and grinding, I mean, if I'm not on tour, if I'm here in my apartment in Harlem, I'm in New York, I'm getting out there in the clubs every night, and I'm trying to continue to cultivate an audience. I was just playing at Minton's Jazz Club in Harlem last night, and I'm playing Smalls Jazz Club next week. So when I'm home, I'm certainly not, taking it easy sitting in my apartment. I'm really trying to hit the clubs and, keep growing the audience.
Well, that's definitely very, very great for you to, say these things because number one, it's super honest. And number two, there's a lot of younger musicians who are looking up to you, who are in college or in high school, and they say, I want to be like Benny. And you're being 100% honest, saying, I'm still out and about trying to be part of the community, which is great. do you, when you come back and have to do, like you said, like you were in, sometimes you have to play in restaurants and that you experience these things from like the owners. Does your blood boil like, or like when things like that happen, or are you just kind of like, are you, like, I think you have to develop a certain amount of detachment from it in order to like not let those things upset you. So how do you approach that, like at where you are in your career now?
Well, it's interesting that you say detachment because I think all that that really is just experience. And if I think back to the first time, a restaurant owner yelled at the band and said we were playing too loud, I probably would have like gone home and cried the whole subway ride home. But it's like you have that happen to you enough times to where you kind of just say, okay, I know what this guy's deal is. He doesn't care about the music. He's just trying to get people in his restaurant and he doesn't care if people are talking over the music because we're just wallpaper to him. Okay, fine. If that's where you're coming from, then I'm not going to put my heart and soul into every note of this song. I'm gonna, I'm gonna just mail it in and look at the clock and say, all right, well, it's 9:01. Time to stop, guys. Nobody's getting an encore tonight. And it's having the perspective of playing a gig and then sending an invoice and getting stiffed and then the club hasn't paid you yet. And the first time that probably happened to me, it was probably like this catastrophe and I said, "Oh gosh, I don't want to bug the owner, but they haven't paid me and it's been 3 days." Now it's like, I that's happened to me enough times where it's like, "All right, let's have an invoice, let's have a deposit." And I need to be paid within 24 hours of when I walk on the stage, or we're not playing the show.
Have you
So,
have you ever experienced something in your years of performing where the whether it was the management or the owner like was just you actually walked out of the gig by any chance? Has that ever happened to you for whatever reason?
it's funny you say that. There have been two instances, one of which I was attending a show. It was like a jam session, and my buddies were in the house band. So I watched them walk out on their show. And then I had one gig in New York City, and all of these years, a dozen years of doing it, there was one gig, and I was the side man, but it was duo with a pianist, and it was his gig. And he had such an issue with the sound man and with the venue that he made the call and he was like, "Man, we're not going back up for the next set. Come on, we're out of here." And so,
It's freeing
I
when
was
you
sort
do that. It's freeing
I was
when
sort
you
of an innocent bystander, but I was kind of like, "Oh my gosh, I'm glad he's the one making the call because I don't know if I'd have the gumption to do it." But we're walking out.
well he I'm
But
sure he still paid you. He was he was,
yeah, exactly.
that's what I
But
meant.
you hope that it never gets to that point. But sometimes, if the music is being that disrespected, you can't really, feel too bad about hurting their feelings because they've already shown that they're not really appreciating the music. They just think you're wallpaper or something like that.
Yeah, I love hearing stories like this, because you hear jazz musicians get interviewed and it's usually asked the same, how'd you start playing the trumpet stuff, but I love the real deal stories like that. um have you also, when you were getting, did you expect to experience any from like a mentor or anything, any like really challenging relationships, anything like that, someone who really pushed you in a sense to be the person you are today?
Well, I'll say this, man. I've been very, very blessed to have incredible mentors and really some of the greatest trumpet players and artists in this music. And so a lot of the stories that I have about that are just people that are just like angels and incredibly encouraging and people that I owe everything to.
That's great.
And I don't have like a horror story like Whiplash, where I had some professor, throw a drumstick at me in rehearsal or anything like that. But what that means is because I have been mentored so positively, is that I feel this immense responsibility to pay that forward and do that for other young people. And I think you see it so much in the jazz scene, especially in a place like New York where it's so cutthroat because there's 10 gigs and 100 musicians that all want those 10 gigs. You see a lot of people like stepping over each other, trying to, like it's Gladiator and everybody's just trying to survive. And I really, really have tried to, just rise above that. And when I hear a great young trumpet player the first thought in my head isn't, oh no, this guy's plays faster than me, he plays higher than me, he's younger than me, he's taller than me, he's cuter than me, he's gonna come steal my gigs. That is genuinely not the first thought that I have. The first thought that I have is, oh man, I want to get him on stage. Let's play a song together. The audience will probably love that. Two trumpets, you know? And it took a while for me to get to a point where that was my genuine, honest reaction because, when you're young and
Oh
you're
no,
one of those.
I understand what you're saying. I mean, like, because like it took me probably close to like I don't know 20 years to start thinking that way.
Yeah, man,
Decades.
it's tough when you're a young person because all of a sudden you're paying rent and you're looking at your month and your calendar is pretty light. And so I get it. People want to have ownership of their gigs, People are worried about, I don't want to call a sub that's going to steal the gig. I better call a sub that, plays so that way I can hold on to the gig and things like that. It's just survival mode, and I get it because it's so hard to make a living, but I think this, I always tell young people this, the sooner you can like break free out of the matrix and kind of get out of that mindset of like, I have to beat everyone else. I have to hustle these gigs. And it really just becomes about, like you said, going out and being a part of the community. Like that's the energy that people are attracted to. And that's how I think ultimately that's how you're going to find your place and get gigs is that like, yeah, you play great. Everybody plays great. But people, you just want to go to work with people that are going to uplift you and are people going to add to the light in the room.
Yeah,
And
once you
there's so
start
much.
celebrating your uniqueness, then I feel like you are able to be part of something, but genuinely be happy to be there as opposed to, realizing that everyone has their own voice and everyone is of value and everyone has something unique to bring. That changes everything, that perspective. It sounds like you've been thinking about that.
Yeah, man. Well, that's it's on cats like you and me that, we've been beaten down over the years a couple times and you kind of need those lessons to have that sort of peace of mind. And so young people, that haven't been through that, they need to hear that. So,
Can I ask you
it's
a question?
like us.
Um, did anything ever happen in your career where you were like, because we're talking about the hardships and the struggles of what it takes to get to a certain place in your career. Did anything ever happen like for a second, whether you were younger, where you're like, oh man, like maybe this is not for me, because there are things like we know that it is very hard, people that, even if it was just one time, did something be like, man, like this is just not for me? Did anything ever happen like that?
Well, I'll say this. I never was a cat that had like a backup plan. I wasn't somebody that was like, I'm going to go to college for, engineering and then I'll do a music minor. I was just always like full throttle, pedal to the metal. I'm going to be a jazz musician or I'm going to be, you know, on
Wait, our connection just got unstable for 1 second.
sidewalk.
Let me, hold on. Our connection just got unstable for 1 second. Let me just fix that. Sorry. All right, we should be back up and rolling now.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now we're good. No, this is jazz. This is fine. This stuff happens, but we're back.
Yeah, a little improv.
Yeah, so what were you saying?
Yeah,
I'm
man,
sorry.
I was just yeah, you have nights where, you don't have your fastball, you don't play a great gig, or, you get your butt kicked and you're discouraged. But I always just my ambition and my passion for it is so strong that, the times that I get knocked down, it could have kept you down on the mat, but it really just like I take it personally, like the Michael Jordan meme, like, and I took that personally. Like if somebody cuts me on a gig or I have a bad night or, you know, the audience doesn't respond to a show the way I thought, and I'm thinking, man, my music's lame or my no one's digging my what I have to say, it makes me come back the next night and, I'm gonna try twice as hard. And that's just kind of the way I'm wired. So, I've had all kinds of experiences, like I said, like, an audience comes out and people aren't clapping, and it seems like the people are walking out of the show and they're not into it. That could break somebody when you're young and fragile and you think that nobody wants to hear what you're doing. I mean, I've had trumpet players show up on gigs and cut me to pieces, and, that might make me want to throw my trumpet in the trash. But all those times when those low moments have happened, I really just reframe it as motivation. And when I've had those low points, it's just made me go work harder. It's made me go back and practice more. It's made me go over the set list and say, well, maybe I can reorder the songs. So maybe if I do the faster song earlier, then people won't get bored and walk out. I'm just always trying to like I'm in like a lab and I'm just trying to workshop stuff. And I don't ever want things to get stale, and I always want to keep growing. I think about like Sonny Rollins, 90 years old, giving magazine interviews about how he still practices every day. And it's like we don't ever reach a point where we're like, you know what? Yeah, I'm good now. I'm just gonna just cruise on this for the next 50 years. It's like I still, I don't have a gig tonight. I'm gonna go sit on my couch and watch TV and watch the Laker game, and I'm gonna practice for 5 hours tonight, and I'm gonna have a blast doing it. So even when
Uh,
those moments happen, I always just keep my eyes on the prize, man.
no, this is great stuff. I wanted to just, move over to another topic that I was kind of curious about too, which was when it comes to you scatting solos, are you sort of thinking like I'm gonna, sing the way I would improvise a solo on the trumpet, like almost a sense what you're hearing coming out of, your vocal cords is the same thing, like the same ideas you would hear as if you were just playing it on the trumpet, or is it a different entity in a sense?
Well, it's funny the way you describe it, man, because that's actually what I say to a lot of aspiring vocalists and singers that want to scat more. I say, look at Chet Baker, right? Listen to Chet Baker, It Could Happen to You scat solo, and then look up a Chet Baker bebop trumpet solo. You're going to hear all the same inflections. You're going to hear all the same scoops, the same, grace notes in the same places. And then you look at one of my favorite tracks ever. It's this album of Dizzy Gillespie and Roy Eldridge together with Oscar Peterson's trio, Roy and Diz. And I did a recording of this on my last album with Mike Stephenson, a great vocalist and saxophonist. We did a duo scat battle, but that was just paying tribute to Roy Eldridge and Dizzy Gillespie. And I love that track because both of them take trumpet solos and both of them scat on the same track. So you can hear when Roy Eldridge scats and he has this gravel and this grit in his voice, when he goes to play the trumpet, that same like bacon grease frying on the pan, that's in his trumpet sound. And when you hear Dizzy Gillespie play the trumpet and he's playing all these triplets and it's much lighter articulation and he's bebopping everywhere, then you hear Dizzy scat and he's scatting all of these triplets and all of these like pronunciations that Roy Eldridge doesn't do, completely unique. So another example is Kenny Dorham. People don't know that Kenny Dorham was a singer, and there's an album of Kenny Dorham Sings, and you hear him sing, and all of the little things about the Kenny Dorham's trumpet inflections that are so unique, you hear it when he sings. So for me, yeah, when I'm taking a scat solo in my mind, I'm scatting, but in my mind, it's like Clifford Brown, Blue Mitchell, Lee Morgan, Freddie Hubbard. That's what's running through my mind, but I'm scatting.
No, this
So
is interesting because I play guitar, and if I'm just like messing around, like I'm not a singer, but if I just try to sing like a solo in my car, like I'm literally thinking of the exact notes that I would play on the guitar, you know?
of course. I mean, and that's why you look at someone like Benson, like how he's able to do that. It's just like his voice and his instrument are completely linked, and that's how he's able to sing everything he's playing because it's
True.
all just coming from the same place. I wish I could be George Benson, man. My God.
Um, as far as your career goes now, you're in a really good place. You're getting to, perform the music you want to perform with the musicians you want to perform with. Do you still have to take work that like just strictly for like, oh, like I'm gonna get some good bread on this gig, so to speak, and it's not that much work. Are you just able to do what you want to do creatively for a living in a sense?
Well, I mean, I'll tell you this. Like you said, I am very fortunate that a majority of my work now is getting to play with people I love and getting to
Hmm.
play the music on my own terms, which is something that has taken 15 years to get to. But there are probably other friends of mine that are now at a point where I have friends that they don't want to be touring 300 days a year. That's exhausting to them. So they'll go and do a tour of music they love with their friends and then come home and take 3 weeks and they might play a gig a week, and they're just going to the gym, hanging out with their girlfriend, taking the dog for a walk, having a nice quality of life, and they have that balance. And because, the tour that they did was financially lucrative and it was fulfilling for them, they can take a couple weeks and go on a vacation and chill out. But like my sickness is that I will come home from that tour and immediately book a gig that night, and get off the plane and have a coffee jet lagged from Japan and go straight to Smalls. Like I just can't help myself. So
No, I get it. It's like it's like it's a drug, but at least a positive drug. It's a positive addiction. I get it. I
yeah,
understand.
and I get energized by being out and being around the music. So for me, if somebody calls me and it's a Saturday night and I have the night off and it's a private corporate gig playing Bruno Mars and it pays $500, like I'll be there. Like I don't
Yeah,
need
I
to,
love that.
I don't
Yeah,
need to be the center of attention. I'll play a wedding gig if it's $450 in Long Island on a Thursday night. Like, come
yeah.
on. I'll
Take
take that. I got a mortgage to pay, man.
take the
I just
money
bought.
and run. Take the money and run.
That's it, man. I'm not too proud. I'm not above any gig, man. And I'll always take a gig if it pays $50, but it's with musicians I respect and it's a good vibe and I have the night off. I'm probably gonna say yes, man, because I just love to play the music. It's not about anything for that for me other
Yeah.
than just I love music.
Do you have this thing? Like I'll give you like I did like three like gigs in like 18 hours this past weekend, and then like I was so energized like the whole time I was on the road, and then the day I got home. But then being in that zone, like I'm just on so much adrenaline, I don't need to sleep really. But then when I get home, like I just crash. It's just like because you're not on that. Do you have any, does that ever happen to you,
Oh
after?
yeah, man. The amount of nights that I've come home from gigs where I fall asleep on the couch with the TV on with like the bacon, egg, and cheese sitting in front of me. Where it's like you're on that adrenaline, like you said, you're riding that high and you're so amped up after the music. And then you get home and then you sit down on the couch and then boom, it's like that switch happens and then it's just like you're down for the count, you
Yeah, but
know?
you could probably go do like two gigs a day for like a week or two, and then you will not feel tired just because of the adrenaline. Like it's just gonna you won't feel
Yeah, I mean,
exhaustion.
you're gonna crash eventually,
Yeah,
you know?
totally. So you were saying that you had that gig at Mittens last night, and you're playing at Smalls next week. So as far as what's going on for you later in the year or in the summer, like is there some things on the calendar that you're really excited about? That's more like in the later future of the year?
Yeah, so I have this live album from the Blue Llama, the club in Ann Arbor.
Hmm.
We recorded it over Labor Day, and the first single is coming out at the end of this month. So that album is going to be out, I think, the full album will be out in June, but we're doing singles every 6 weeks. So I've got a show. Coming up on a Sunday in May at Birdland, and that's going to be one of the single release shows. It's going to be like an album preview show, and I love playing at Birdland. That's such a great club, and that is May 11th. So that's like my next big gig, really in New York. It's going to be showcasing the new album, and then in the spring, I've actually got a couple tours. Jazz at Lincoln Center is hosting my quartet on a tour of China. So at the end of April, we're going to be in Beijing, Hong Kong, Shanghai. I'm excited about that. And then looking ahead, in the fall, in November, I'm going to be doing a European tour with this show called Sing and Swing that I toured last year with Bria Skonberg, another great jazz vocalist trumpeter. So
Hmm.
we'll be doing some in Europe together, and then in September, I'm doing one of the jazz cruises, which is called the Journey of Jazz. And I just got off the jazz cruise. That was at the end of January, and those are really fun because it's just like a big jazz festival at sea. And then when you're not on stage, everybody's, in the casino having a drink or they're up on the top deck playing pickleball. That's really fun too.
Yeah, no, that sounds no, this year's is this like the most exciting year you think for you? Like the like that so far what it appears to be?
Man, it's like the years go by. I just keep trying to fill up the calendar, There's always highlights, there's always amazing gigs and opportunities that you can look to. But I'm more just like, okay, is the calendar booked? Do I have somewhere to be on next Saturday or am I going to be, sitting at home? And I'm fortunate that this year the calendar is pretty full too. So as long as I got somewhere to be, then I feel like, I'm doing the right thing.
No, this is great, and you know, Benny, I love how honest you were too during the interview. I feel like a lot of jazz musicians, like in this context, they don't want to let their guard down, but you were totally, you know, telling it like it is, and it's going to be really good for the listeners to hear. So, you know, thanks so much for we'll have to do it again.
I know you know your audience is hip. They don't need everything spoon fed to them and sugar coated. And you got a lot of musicians, so I feel like you know on rabbit hole sessions we're preaching to the choir. You know, a lot of people they don't need it. You know, spoon fed to them. So
No,
thanks for
we don't need the, you know, the ice rainbow sprinkles. It's fine.
yeah.